I am doing a dry mix recipe for seasoned salt and pork chop. And I'm also going to add in my homemade taco seasoning. So let's get started. The first recipe is a seasoned salt recipe, general purpose seasoned salt. Majority of the time I will use it on French fries or potatoes. Occasionally I will use it on something else, but it's my go-to for seasoned salt. And then I take it one step further to turn it into my pork chop seasoning. So real quick, what I have here is my pre-measured ingredients. I want to say first, some of my ingredients are homegrown ingredients. If you don't have homegrown ingredients, you can use the store-bought, and all of these ingredients are very forgiving, which means you can play with it, you can make it your own. You can have more of one thing and less of another, or leave something out that you don't like, or even add something in. That's the great thing about making dry mixes, is you can make it however you want. You can be creative. You can mix and match things to get the right flavor that you want. Right. The first thing I'm going to start with is kosher salt. If you do not have kosher salt, table salt will do. I'm going to use kosher salt along with garlic powder to make garlic salt. So you can do it that way, or you can just start out straight up with garlic salt. But I'm going to use 6 tablespoons of kosher salt. And I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of garlic powder. If you do not have garlic powder or kosher salt, you can use table salt. You can make your, but you can use garlic salt if that's what you have on hand. If you don't want to mix these two together and you have garlic salt, you're going to use a ½ cup of garlic salt. Now, to make your own garlic salt from salt and garlic powder, you would use a 3-to-1 ratio. I have the garlic powder and the garlic salt in my bowl here. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of paprika. This is my homegrown paprika, which is very strong, slightly spicy. You can use store-bought. If you use store-bought, you may want to play with that and add a little more, because store-bought is not quite as potent as homemade. So this is 2 tablespoons of paprika. You can also use smoked paprika. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of onion powder. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of ground red pepper, and that is whatever choice you want. I'm going to use cayenne, so I'm just going to use 1 teaspoon. And that was homegrown cayenne peppers. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of black pepper. 1 tablespoon of parsley. My parsley is homegrown as well, but you can use store-bought of any of these things. I'm going to use 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground mustard, and use such a small amount because ground mustard is a little strong in my opinion. Isn't that pretty in the bowl? All those colors. Now I'm just going to mix all of this up. Now I like a lot of parsley in my seasonings, so that might be a bit much to you. You can use less. we used 1 tablespoon, but I like a lot of parsley. You can use less, and of course you can use more. So there is my seasoned salt. Anything you would use seasoned salt on, that's what you can make up right there. Now, to make the pork chop recipe for the pork chop seasoning, I use the seasoning salt, and then I add a pinch of sage, just a pinch. So really I'm going to have 2 of these made up. One is going to be for just general purpose seasoned salt, and then one is going to be for my pork chop seasoning. So I'm going to go ahead and do the pork chop seasoning because that's what I need right now. And remember I said just a pinch of sage. Sage is kind of strong too, and I don't want too much of it. So it's just going to be a pinch. And all I'm going to do is put it into a jar, and I'm going to seal it. That amount, let me turn this up just a little. That's what that recipe makes. Now, if I'm refilling my jars, I'm going to double and triple it so that I can fill it up all the way. Because I use it a lot, I want a bulk amount. I just made a single serving for the sake of the video. And I did add, let me get my spoon. I did add to the bottom of the jar that pinch of sage. Just mix it up really good and keep it in an airtight container. I keep this by the stove. This is going to go in this jar. And this is what I'm going to keep by the stove for my pork chops. And I use one of those plastic ball lids with the holes in it so that I can sprinkle it out. I will make a bigger batch. It might be a jar this size, it might be a couple of these, but I do like to keep a lot of it on hand. This will last me for a short while, not a long time, but a short while, because I do use pork chops a lot, and I use this seasoning a lot. So that's my dry seasoning mix for the seasoned salt plus pork chops. To make it a pork chop seasoning, just add the sage. Everything else is the same. Now, I'm going to move on to the taco seasoning. Now we're ready to make the taco seasoning that I keep on hand. This is my jar that I keep all the time, and I've got about a half a jar left. I keep my ingredient list on the back, and I keep instructions on the lid, which is 1 to 2 tablespoons per quarter cup of water. And I will make a small batch up and add it to this jar. It actually takes quite a few ingredients to make this recipe, but it is so good. My kids always loved it, thought it was better tasting than the store-bought in the packages. I'm going to start out with 2 tablespoons of flour, and that is for thickening purposes once you put it in the pan to use it. 1 tablespoon of chili powder. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. And 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. I did grow these and crush them up. 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano. This is store-bought oregano. 1/4 teaspoon. half a teaspoon of paprika, and this is my paprika that I grew and ground up. You can use smoked paprika as well. I generally just use regular the paprika that I grew. 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin. That's 1. And this is store-bought as well. And there's the half. 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm using kosher salt for this particular recipe. You can use table salt, sea salt, pink salt, or kosher salt. 1 teaspoon of black pepper. 1 teaspoon of basil. I did grow the basil. And 1 teaspoon of turmeric. This is store-bought turmeric. I have turmeric, but it's in the freezer. 1 teaspoon. I have not made that into a powder yet. And that's it for that. I'm going to stir this up and add it to my already made taco stuff. Now the flour will try to lump up. You have to just press the lumps out of it. Not a big problem. And it smells so good. It smells just like, if not better, than what you would tear open in one of those packages for taco seasoning. It looks and smells like taco seasoning. I may have used a little more cumin because sometimes I just, rough estimate, but this is a little on the pink side versus the brown side. And you'll be able to see the difference when I get it in the jar here. You can see the difference in coloring. But that's okay. It's just more or less. When I make it in a hurry, I don't do exact measurements. I do rough, and so I may have a little more cumin in one batch or a little more turmeric or something like that. Like I said, dry mixes, they don't have to be exact. They're very forgiving, and you can do more or less of any ingredient that you want. I hope if you use any of these recipes, that whether you use exactly as I have demonstrated here or you change it up and use your own, let me know what you think. If you try it, let me know if you like it or if you didn't like it. But remember, you can change it up. These are just the base ingredients for a recipe. Make it your own. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, please. I would appreciate it. And I hope you will subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. For all of those who have subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.